South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Yes, Josh Hennig is live back in the Matt Black Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. We will get to the latest on the Eagles, the latest on the 76ers as they play the Detroit Pistons tonight. Of course, tonight's action, we have a doubleheader Sixers basketball at 7 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Then Thursday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers versus the Arizona Cardinals in progress following Sixers basketball. We will get more into NFL Week 8 with Andy McNamara from Sportsnet. We'll get into your fantasy football questions, the NFL week preview as well with Andy coming up at 6:20 tonight here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you can always join the conversation. Don't forget priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Text board is open 609-403-0973. And of course, we are live on YouTube and Twitter as always on 97.3 ESPN. I'll also give you guys a little rundown of my what happened the last few days for me. Obviously, for those who've been listening in, catching us throughout the week, I was down in Florida for the PFL 2021 season finale for their championships. 6 champions were crowned last night, which means there were $6 million winners last night in the PFL's finals. So a lot of fun down there this week. Just running on, early flight back, so a little tired today, but we're still pushing through here at 97.3 ESPN. I want to get to the Eagles stuff. I will get to the PFL stuff, and also I will touch on the Sixers stuff. But I gotta start with the Eagles because, Mike Gill brought up a very interesting point today. The question of what if the Eagles will lose the Lions. I think that would be in many ways the straw that breaks the camel's back because, I told Mike Gill earlier today, we were talking about the fact that the Panthers and the Falcons play this Sunday. Those are the two teams the Eagles have beaten this year. Whoever wins that game will have 4 wins on the year. 4 wins. So the Eagles didn't beat the Dolphins. They didn't beat a team like Jacksonville this year. No, they beat 2 teams that could potentially have double the wins that they do by the end of the weekend. So the Eagles have talent. They can win games. The roster is not Drek. And I understand there's a lot of frustrated fans out there. But think about that for a minute. We had to hear for weeks, Falcons are a bad football team. They stink. They got to have 4 wins by the end of the weekend. The Panthers have been on a free fall in recent weeks, but they got to have 4 wins by the end of the weekend. Either way, at the end of this weekend, the 2 teams the Eagles beat this year will have a combined 7 wins on the year. So how bad are the Eagles? They're not that bad. The problem with the Eagles, I still go back to, and I've said this multiple times on the air. I've written about this at 973ESPN.com. I just keep telling you guys, the problem is you have a coaching staff that doesn't get it to me. They don't get it. The obliviousness and the numbness and the just complete, I don't understand Sirianni at all. Sirianni was a guy that when they hired him, I thought was a little head scratching, but I understood that Sirianni had a history of being another coach that Lori hired out of obscurity. Andy Reid, nobody knew who he was. Doug Peterson was arguably their fourth or fifth option, right? Now you hired Sirianni, and you thought, okay, maybe, just maybe, Lori knows what he's doing. I don't think he does. I think either Sirianni sold him a bill of goods, he's a great interviewer, or Sirianni is just completely out of his depth. He is a guy who can't swim in the deep end of the pool, flailing away, and the lifeguard is trying to figure out, do I jump in for this guy or do I not jump in for this guy? That lifeguard being the Eagles organization. There's no way that the owner of the football team in Philadelphia hired this guy and is okay with being 2-5. They can say all they want about development and transition and all these things. But if you lose to the Lions, to me, that's a moment that you have to make a decision. Do we let this keep going or do we blow it up and start over next year? Because I don't think the problem is just the players. I don't think some of the players are good enough to be successful in the systems they're being asked to play in. For example, the linebackers, I think they're asking Alex Singleton and Davion Taylor and TJ Edwards to do things that are not their skill sets. I think Jonathan Gannon has done a very poor job at times building a game plan around the talent that he has on the field. I think the loss of Brandon Graham hurts the Eagles defense, but that's not an excuse for the passive zone that Gannon insists on running. For his defensive genius, he looks like an idiot. And then on offense, your scripted plays drove you down the field for a touchdown. So we know Sirianni has a clue. But as soon as that drive was done, he didn't know what to do the rest of the game until the fourth quarter when it was too late again. I just think that this coaching staff is out of their depth. And I don't understand what has to be done, but something has to change. And of course, the latest Eagles injury report, Ryan Kerrigan, Zach McPherson, and Miles Sanders all did not practice today. There's a long list of guys who are limited at practice, including Landon Dickerson, Javon Hargrave, Anthony Harris, and all of them. It's a limited practice. They did actually get on the field, so you think that they're going to be fine. They'll be good to go, and you really need Harris out there because you saw that Epps got really picked on at times last week versus the Raiders. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Of course, the show being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Bet all the action and style at the FanDuel Sportsbook right off the boardwalk at Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Sixers back in action tonight. That game that they lost on Tuesday was very, very disheartening. And when I saw this news come out yesterday, and I was on the air to talk about it yesterday, so I want to hit on it now with the game coming up tonight, because we don't know exactly who is or isn't playing tonight. I know Joel Embiid is in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment situation. But, Embiid is dealing with this issue with his knee. And I have to wonder, because Doc Rivers said about 45 minutes ago that Embiid and Shake Milton were both still questionable for the game tonight. How long until you protect Embiid from himself? You've had to do it before. There's a long history with this organization of them having to force Embiid to rest, to take care of himself. They had to take the decision out of Embiid's hands. I just don't understand how you can let this guy go out there injured if he's as injured as what Ramona Shelburne reported yesterday. Because if his knee is that bad, then you have to sit him. You can't let him go out there and potentially do any more damage. For those who didn't hear it, Ramona Shelburne was on the new ESPN show, NBA Today, on ESPN television. And this is what she had to say yesterday. And this was the audio that left me very concerned, as I wrote about over at 97.3 ESPN.com yesterday.
And he told me after this game in New Orleans, he couldn't walk for 2 days, but he still went out and played in Oklahoma City. And obviously he played against the Knicks and the Nets.
So why is he playing then?
He's playing because Ben Simmons is not playing.
All right, hold on. Pause it right there. He's not playing because Ben Simmons is not playing. Joel Embiid thinks that he has to play because he doesn't trust the Sixers can win without one of their two all-stars on the floor. That is a very telling thing. That Joel Embiid feels like he can't rely on his other teammates to fill the void without him. Now, whether he's right or wrong, you can figure that out on your own. But if Embiid thinks that Ben Simmons is that important to this team, that's very, very problematic. More from Ramona Shelburne, ESPN NBA reporter and writer.
And they need one of them on the court. He wants to show leadership at this moment because, as you say, you don't want to fall behind to where you cannot come back. But look, he's settling for a mid-range game that he doesn't have right now. Okay, the idea with Embiid is he lost out on the MVP last year because he didn't play quite enough games. Well, he doesn't want to do that again this year. Winning
MVP is very important to Embiid. He wants to prove the doubters wrong. But this is a guy who has never played more than, 63 games, 65 games in a season? He has a long history of missing games. He's had a long history of getting beat up. And this is why when Embiid said a couple of weeks ago, I need help. Why the Sixers want to trade Ben Simmons for an all-star caliber player. You can't, if Embiid has a bad night like he did against the Knicks, you can't win. And then the rest from Ramona Shelburne.
But if he's going to play like this, where his knee's not there, it's not under him, he can't get by people, he's not moving well on the court, there is a sense that maybe he should sit a game or two to get that knee right, because it's a meniscus injury. It was flared up after the knocking knees with Valanciunas, and they play the Pistons tomorrow. There's a sense maybe he plays a couple of minutes, he goes 25, 26 minutes to get them off to a good start, or sit down for a game or two to get that knee right, because he's trying to show leadership. It's by being out there, but at some point, you're not going to win an MVP if you're playing like that.
That's the full audio from Ramona Shelburne. It's concerning. It's very concerning what is going on with the Sixers, because if Embiid is feeling pressured to fight through an injury, it's definitely a head-scratching thing. And we'll give you an update as soon as we get the full Sixers situation for tonight. Sixers playing the Pistons tonight, 7 o'clock. Coverage begins. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for Sixers basketball, Eagles football, and Flyers hockey in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you guys. Coming up, we'll get into more Eagles and NFL with Andy McNamara from Sportsnet to get you ready for NFL Week 8 right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of CLC. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. This Sunday, it's Week 8 of the 2021 season with the Eagles heading to Detroit to take on the Lions.
He completes it. It's Gainwell in for the touchdown.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
You've probably heard that used cars are currently in great demand, but then some dealers go ahead with ridiculously low offers for your trade. Well, at Bennett Chevy, we don't care what others tell you. This month only, our offers start at a minimum $8,000. Even if your trade's towed to our lot, we'll give you a minimum $8,000 for any old clunker, rattle trap, or rust bucket towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. And if we pay a minimum $8,000 for junk, just imagine how much more Bennett will pay for a nice, clean, good running vehicle. Just grab your title or payment book and get to Bennett Chevy to get the most for your trade. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. Need to get out of a lease early? Bennett is your all brands lease return center. No strings, no obligations. Just the best offers you'll find anywhere. And a non-commissioned sales staff paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night. Thursday edition here on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Right now we're going to get into NFL Week 8 starts tonight. The Packers-Cardinals game uses a little bit of luster, but there's still a lot going on. And to get more into all of that, joining us right now is each and every Thursday, Andy McNamara, Sportsnet Fantasy Sports and NFL Analyst, joins us right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Andy, I see you wearing the shirt of the other side, the dark side of the coin, right?
That's right. Listen, Josh, I have been a wrestling fan since I've been 8 years old. And for those listening on the radio, I'm wearing all elite wrestling shirt. And I haven't been into it, Josh, for like the past, honestly, probably like 10 years. The WWE side has just sort of fallen away from me, which I hate. I've been to WrestleManias in Toronto. I love it. Hardcore fan, but this AEW thing has just got me in my feels. It's got me back, and I love it. I love it each and every week. So I bought a shirt. I bought an all-elite wrestling shirt.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I was talking with Mike Gill earlier on his show about the fact that I was at the PFL this past week down in Florida for the championships. And the PFL is to MMA what AEW is to pro wrestling, whereas UFC is kind of like the WWE. They're the marquee name, but then you have the other brand that's just as good. Yeah, exactly. And I saw those. That looked like a fun time down there for you. That looked awesome. But yeah, you certainly need WWE. You certainly need UFC because that's what people associate with. Just like when you ask for a Kleenex, you don't ask for Continental, you ask for a Kleenex, right? That's the name brand. Maybe a bad example, but yeah, you ask for the name brand, and that gets you in the door. To say. You know what I'm trying to say. That gets you in the door. But I just think AEW's done such a great job with like really, Josh. To me, it's back to the late 90s, early 2000s wrestling style and just the storylines and everything makes sense. And I don't know. I'm just, I'm catching up on lost time. I absolutely love it. Well, let's get to the football because I know people have questions. They have a lot of things they want to ask about. And I'll get to some of the text board. I see people texting in at 609-403-0973 and DMing through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Andy, first of all, tonight's a weird game because Aaron Rodgers, but no Devontae Adams, no Allen Lazard. What do you do if you're a fantasy football player? Do you stick with the guy who has consistently been the guy, or do you fade him? Yeah, it's a very tough situation because, like you said, you're not only without Devontae Adams, you're without the guy who, if there was any leftover scraps, if there was any food that fell off the dinner table, would have got them. And that's Allen Lazard, and he's out because we know how that offense works. It's throw to Devontae Adams, throw to him again, and then keep throwing to him no matter what. Like we've seen some obscene target share go to Adams. So when you take out those top two, where does the ball go? And so I think what we have to look at is, okay, a Randall Cobb jumps out to me. Comfort zone for Aaron Rodgers. Now but remember, 2 games ago, he didn't even get a target. So is it him? Is it just like one of the extra backups and he just distributes it? I think at receiver,
I'd be most comfortable with, and by that I mean like I'm still not comfortable with it, but if you have to start somebody at the receiver core, it would be Cobb. I just feel we're really guessing on it. So this could be a day for Robert Tonyan where we see him go above his 2-3 targets. Maybe it's a bigger day for the running backs, and we look to get some more distribution there in the passing game because we know both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon can run the ball. So it's a very interesting way to see how this unfolds on the Packers side.
Now, with that being said, there's the other side of the coin, which is the Cardinals. They're a really good offense.
Yeah.
The problem is, my problem with the Cardinals is, unless you have DeAndre Hopkins, how much fantasy value do the other guys have? Because we know Kyler Murray is willing to spread the ball around. Like, if you have Kyler Murray, you're very happy right now, right?
Yeah.
This Cardinals offense has been incredible. But there's a part of me that looks at the rest of the team and says, unless you have Hopkins or Murray, the other options are getting a little sketchy. And now you throw Zach Ertz into the mix. That's a whole nother situation where Ertz scores a touchdown last week. Is that an omen of things to come?
Right. And that's what we talked about when we were chatting last weekend. And the situation I want to see now, again, the tight end spot is so lean. If you have a Zach Ertz and your comparison is like a Pat Freiermuth or whatever the heck his name isn't picked. Okay, you can go with Ertz. I'm not saying it's your first choice, but I want to see another week. I want to see how it's used because this under Cliff Kingsbury with Kyler Murray, the tight end has never, ever been a key part of the offense when it comes to being a weapon. It hasn't. So is Zach Ertz changing that conversation? I want to see it for a second week. What we also have to remember, DeAndre Hopkins, hamstring issue. Now, he's sort of turning into the new Julio Jones, where it's always that dreaded Q beside his name going up into game time. I think he might play, but that seems serious enough where he hasn't really practiced all week that maybe he's limited. So to answer your question, I'm personally going to start him on one of my fantasy teams. I want me some Christian Kirk in PPR. Standard, not so much. PPR, I want myself some Christian Kirk. And you look at the last couple of weeks, he's been mid to high teens fantasy points wise. He's popped also earlier in the year. It's not a fluke. He's that next go-to. So if Hopkins does not play or is limited, I would still take Kirk over an AJ Green at this point in the offense and in their careers. AJ Green could always go up, but I just feel that Kirk is more established in that comfort zone. And then really it's a wait and see on Zach Ertz. That's going to be really interesting to see.
You know, the other thing with the tight ends is, you know, Gronk is back at practice, right?
Yeah.
You have Dustin Knox not practicing up there in Buffalo. And then you have the whole Darren Waller situation where, thank goodness, I didn't wait. I benched him on Sunday.
Nice.
I didn't pick up his backup because, you know, I didn't even know what the guy's name was until the game started. Nobody did.
Right.
But, you know, it's one of those deals where you're like, you got to make decisions. And it's like with tight end, as you mentioned, the options are limited. So what is your like overview of the tight ends? Because like I said, some guys are not practicing. Zach Ertz is in a new offense. You mentioned Tonyan maybe tonight. I mean, how do you grade these guys? Like, you put them in tiers? Like, what are we doing here?
It's tough. It's tough, Josh. It was tough at the beginning of the year when everybody was healthy. And now you throw in all of these what-if scenarios. Really, with Gronk, what we've learned is that if he's not playing, you don't touch one of the other Tampa Bay tight ends. That's number one. Not Brate, not Howard. You leave him alone. The Zach Ertz situation, again, I think he can play, but when we look at everything else, Dawson Knox had hand surgery. So in Buffalo, he's out. Dalton Schultz, and then you have Michael Gallup, who might be coming back. What does that mean to his target share? I really do like Schultz. I think he's moving up into that sort of second tier where right now, if you take Waller out, it's just Travis Kelce. That's it. It's Kelce. And then we take a dip down. Mark Andrews, though, while super inconsistent earlier this year and last year, has the last few weeks really ramped it up. So I think we can move Mark Andrews back into that second category with the likes of when we look at the other possible tight ends like a Dalton Schultz. Everybody else, and I love me some TJ Hawkinson. Do I put him in that second tier because he's continually banged up? I probably put him at the highest end of the third tier that I'm going to play him, but I have to temper my expectations of low double digits. That's really where it comes down to. And Robert Tonyan, all things being equal, if that dude doesn't catch you a touchdown, he's getting you 4 fantasy points. That's
Now,
that's how that is.
now that being said, Joey D. and Ventnor has a question about his situation. He says, help, I'm in a half-point PPR. I have Zach Ertz, Gronk, and I picked up Tunyon because I lost Devontae Adams. Who do I start?
Oh, that's a great question. That's an awesome question. Not Gronk this week, because if he's just practicing coming back and then you ease in, I say definitely not Gronk. I'm going to say in this scenario, I just have Josh, and you know what? This clip might be clipped later. And it's like, McNamara doesn't know what it is. I got a better feeling about Robert Tunyon because of the pieces missing. Who does Aaron Rodgers have chemistry with? It's Cobb, it's Tunyon. I think Tunyon gets at least one touchdown today. I think that's the better play. Again, was Zach Ertz in an offense that has never, in this regime, never included the tight end as a key component, as a weapon to go to? Is that a one-off? It might not be. We might see him being used more, and all of a sudden the offense changes as Zach Ertz is going. I'm not going to go that. I'm going to personally go the safer route, and I think the safer route today is Robert Tunyon. He's going to need you a touchdown, but I think we see more of like a 5-ish catch and then a half-point PPR with a touchdown that's going to give you a good day. So I'll go with Tunyon, and then, we'll see.
Andy McNamara joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Follow Andy on Twitter at AndyMC81. Let's get to some of the guys who are going to be playing later in this weekend. I want to start, though, with somebody who got traded, Mark Ingram. Does he get value now that he's been traded to New Orleans, or are you playing a wait-and-see approach with him?
I think it's just handcuff. That's it. Like if you get him and you can drop somebody else that you're not going to use, sure, he's a handcuff. The move doesn't excite me. It doesn't raise his fantasy value to me at all. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It does raise his fantasy value because at least he's not in some three-headed monster. At least we know what his role is going to be, and that's a backup, and that's someone who's probably not going to be used unless there's an injury to Kamara. Now, he also knows this offense is comfortable in these surroundings, so that helps. So I'll say from a potential usability standpoint, his value goes up. I'm more interested in the David Johnson component of this. Now, Phillip Lindsay barely used, how that plays out, and now we're down. Now, the Texans are working out some off-the-street type of guys. So, are they going to be used? Like maybe. And the Texans offense in general is pretty bad, but that's why I like David Johnson from where Ingram left more, because if you got to pass the ball, and Phillip Lindsay can't catch, I'm not saying he can't, but David Johnson is used much more in that capacity. So the Johnson factor, I think, is more useful out of this whole situation.
Are we at a point with the Dolphins that we're just not even going to play them in fantasy anymore?
I think you got to go Gesicki out of necessity, right? Like, out of necessity, and that he still can't. I think Jalen Waddle, if you put him in sort of a WR3 capacity, he's probably going to be getting looks, right? He has shown that chemistry. So there are usable pieces here, Josh, but not anything that you're like, that dude's going to take me to a title. That's a guy who's going to get you through a bye week. That's a guy who you hope hits like 10 fantasy points and you don't have a disaster at a particular position spot. So I think there are those couple of guys. Myles Gaskin, I dropped him, Josh. I dropped him. I couldn't. After the 30, nothing, 30.0.3, all that garbage. I got to think of a clever, like, anti-Myles Gaskin fantasy team name for next year, because that guy cost me at least 1 week in my life. Very upset.
Well, with that being said, there was someone I dropped this week, and I'm glad you're sitting down. I couldn't deal with it anymore. I decided to drop Baker because this shoulder situation is concerning, man. Like, if you're somebody, like for me, I grabbed Baker in the later rounds to be my backup because my starter was Lamar. Well, Lamar's on a bye week this week, and I have more confidence that Kirk Cousins is going to be on the field this Sunday than I do at Baker. So what do you tell the Baker Mayfield owners who are not me, who he's their starter, and they have to go out there, maybe grab a Kirk Cousins, or maybe they grabbed Case Keenum Or maybe they got really desperate and found Teddy Bridgewater in the deeper leagues.
Yeah, it's tough. I love me some Bake. Anybody who's watching on the stream, I love my Baker. But let's look at the facts. Torn labrum, shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, and there's like a bone chip or something. There's like a broken, like a dent or something in the shoulder. Now, apparently, reports out of Cleveland today are that the swelling has gone down, and now Baker is expected to play. But does that mean he's going to be at full capacity? No. Does that mean he's going to even finish the game if he takes a hit from TJ Watt? Maybe not. So I think you have to fade away from Baker now. Now, if you can keep him on your bench again, sort of in that backup role for now, like maybe. But I don't think there's going to be too much clamoring on the waiver wire for him. So you can probably safely drop him and try to reacquire if need be. When healthy, like that offense in Denver, like Teddy Bridgewater is, I saw him in person last week in Cleveland. That looked terrible, like so bad. And Jerry Jeudy's coming back, so maybe Teddy can be serviceable. I think the Kirk Cousins move is a smart one. You're up against Dallas. You're going to have to throw the ball. And while there have been a couple weeks in a row, going a few weeks back, where Kirk Cousins and that offense looked terrible, Kirk Cousins, sandwiched as the bread parts in between those bad weeks, has balled out at points for fantasy owners. So I think Kirk Cousins is a great pickup.
Two more guys I want to ask you about before I let you go. Miles Sanders not practicing in Philadelphia today. I know you are starting to really fall in love with Kenneth Gainwell as an option. If you are talking to Miles Sanders owners, is Gainwell becoming more than a handcuff? Is he becoming a guy that you say, look, even when Sanders comes back, maybe you drop Sanders, or maybe you trade him, or maybe you just phase him out? Because, for example, in Washington, if you're someone who owns Antonio Gibson, you're starting to wonder, can you trust that guy to be an option? Because apparently he's basically playing through that injury, and it's not getting better, and it's really limiting him.
Yeah, and that shin injury on Gibson, like, just think about this, folks. I know sometimes you hear like turf toe or like a shin. Think about this, like a hairline fracture in your shin, where you are a dynamic and imagine having to push off, twist, pivot, and all that. Oh, and by the way, you're going to have dudes trying to tackle you around the ankles, which is around your shin. That's serious. I'm more concerned on the Gibson side. On the Gainwell side, that was my top waiver wire pickup this week in my Sportsnet.ca article, comes out every Tuesday. And what, outside of it being your typical, Josh, where it's like, all right, a guy gets injured, so you chase the backup and you pick him up off waiver. Okay, that's everybody can do that. But if we look at the fantasy production for Kenneth Gainwell throughout the year, there have been flashes. There have been 3 double-digit performances before the Sanders injury. So if I have 3 of those, I'm in week 7. Now, there certainly have been dips, but that is showing to me, okay, being used in the offense, being brought along in the offense. Look at the draft capital. If him and Sanders are on the field, I think there is some standalone potential, depending on matchup, flex appeal to Gainwell. He and the offense hasn't shown me enough that they're going to go with him exclusively, but it has to be, I believe, viewed sort of trending towards that pattern. Now, that ceiling is always going to be knocked down a bit, though, because you have Jalen Hurts, who's so athletic and so dynamic that he might just take off and do it himself.
Just remember, folks, if you see Kenneth Gainwell on Flex Appeal on that ESPN show on Sunday that will remain nameless, because only one of those people have ever come on my show.
Boo.
Only one of them. None of the rest of them have ever come on my show. I won't, so the show will remain nameless. But if you see Kenneth Gainwell in that Flex Appeal segment, just remember you heard it here from Andy McNamara first.
That's right. All elite NFL coverage here, Josh.
All right, really quick before I let you go. I know there are people out there who drafted and stashed Michael Thomas. It's starting to look like he ain't coming back this week, and he ain't coming back next week. What is your advice to those people? Do you keep stashing him? Do you let him go? What do you do?
I personally would have my strategy going into the year was not touching him because of the injury, because of the situation, because he didn't tell his team that he was having surgery. He ghosted his team. So how is he going to work in? This whole year just stinks of a wash, because even if he does come back, depending, well, what's going to happen? What happens you see all the time? All of a sudden, we're going to hear about hammies and calves and soft tissue and this and this. So my advice would be, if you have stashed him on your IR and he's sitting there, try to trade him for anything. Just try, put it out there. Maybe you can get a little feel, maybe you can get a dangle. If there's no takers, and if he's still sitting on your IR and not really taking up an actual spot, then keep him. But if you have another injured spot that you need to use and he's taken up, I would drop him. I have no interest in Michael Thomas this year.
Follow him on Twitter at AndyMC81. Andy McNamara, who joins us each and every Thursday right here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, make sure all your fantasy football, NFL analysis, and, of course, don't forget about the UFF, right?
That's right, brother. UFF Sports. We did the American Football Legends League last week. When I talked to you on the show, I was going to the Browns game, and then we had the auction, the franchise auction, sold off all 16 teams at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It was awesome. Follow on Twitter as well. We got tons of cool pictures from the event and league information at the AFLL.
There you go. Andy, we'll catch you next week.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
Josh Hennig here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We'll wrap up the show coming up on the other side here as we hang out with you on a Thursday night tonight. Sixers basketball, 7 p.m. Sixers and Detroit Pistons right here on 97.3 ESPN, followed by Packers and Cardinals Thursday night football.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
The shot by Seth is good again.
The Sixers are in Detroit to face the Pistons. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's play-by-play home for the 76ers.
All right, wrapping up the show. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. So Joel Embiid is officially in the starting lineup. Your starters for the 76ers tonight is what we've seen for the last several games. Embiid, Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey, Danny Green. Shake Milton is available to come off the bench for the 76ers tonight. You hear all the action coming up next right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Before I let you guys go, I want to give you a little recap. I'll write an article about this over 97.3 ESPN.com in a couple of days because the PFL, which started their season in Atlantic City, which was a huge part of their success this year, they crowned 6 new champions, the winners of the 2021 PFL season last night. Kayla Harrison and Ray Cooper became the first-time, 2-time champions in PFL history, which means they won now $2 million fighting in their regular season and postseason. Some incredible fights. Ray Cooper just overcame insurmountable odds in the fight. I mean, he was about hard of a champion. That dude went out there and he took the best of what Magomed Kermov could give him, and he said, all right, now it's my turn to blast you in the face. Kayla is just a dominant force of nature. I was sad to see Chris Wade lose, but I felt like he went in there with the wrong strategy. Chris told me here on 97.3 ESPN that his strategy all year long was to not get in the wrestling matches. He wanted to prove he was an all-around fighter, and I felt like he tried to out-wrestle Kabalayev last night, and that was a wrong strategy. I think that's why Chris was so upset after the fight. It was great to see Haush Menifio and Antonio Carlos Jr. win, not just because they're both good dudes, but because they both had to overcome so much in the last 18 months in their personal lives and their professional lives. So it was a great night. And of course, maybe saw my tweet where I went after Jake Paul on Twitter, which he still hasn't replied to me because trolls like Jake Paul are bullies who don't like anybody sitting up to them. But he tried to trash Clarissa Shields. Clarissa Shields lost her second MMA fight last night. It was because Abby Montez was more equipped to win an MMA fight than a boxer who hasn't learned how to grapple properly. And, Jake Paul can say whatever he wants, but Jake Paul won't do what Clarissa Shields does, ever. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Catch you tomorrow.